This meeting is being recorded.
Hello, everyone. No introduction necessary. I am here with wonderful ASHALA Yardley. But before we connect, and I will jump into all those questions I have, I want to thank everyone who sent me such a beautiful birthday wishes, because yesterday I turned the corner and I turned 50. So thank you, everyone, for so beautiful wishes. The best is yet to come. And yeah, that's what I want to say. Thank you so much for sending me all those wishes. And the biggest gift you can give me is to stay with me on this journey, watch our videos, me and ASHALA and other people, or my travel videos, subscribe. I mean, follow me on Instagram. I really would appreciate. Follow me on Instagram and join my mailing list. And that's about it. Welcome, ASHALA.
Welcome, Anya, and happy belated birthday. And wow, I'm astonished. I'm astonished. You look amazing. And yeah, what
Thank you so much. So do you, by the way. So do you.
Yeah.
Yes, I've heard. By the way, guys, check ASHALA's one, not the last one. The last one was with the guest, Feng Shui guest, but the previous one, ASHALA had this incredible forecast for 2022, and she mentioned her age. So, like, seriously, you don't look your age either.
I think a lot of it is just the way we look at life, and you know, like how youthful we are in our perspectives and open-minded. I feel like that has a huge part to play.
Is the energy.
Yeah,
I think it's the energy. So ASHALA, I was thinking, I have so many questions that are in a quite two different groups. What I would like to do today, those are a little bit more serious, more narrowed. However, in our next meeting, I want to go into something different, and I will say later on what I would like that conversation to be about, unless another thing will jump out in the situation, because you know, never ending supply, right, of entertainment and all of it. So my first question will be this. Just recently, about 2 days ago, there was a very intense situation with this company, which is investment holding company in China. It's called EVERGRAND. And why I'm talking about it is because this is related to investments and pretty much the bankruptcy of China. So when that crashes, this will affect the entire world, and 401ks and all those pension plans, not just in US, but whoever invests in this. So I would like to know, where is this going? Because apparently they are going to sell, I mean, the Monish, 30 buildings, I think. So there is some level of distraction with this. Where is this going, and how this will affect the regular citizens who actually have some, you know, pension plans and 401ks and all those investments connected to that, and the stock market and so on.
Okay. I'm going to start with the more positive overall spin on this, and then I'm going to go into some more specific things that we may be looking at. The more positive spin on this, Anya, is that what I'm seeing is somehow we're at a crossroads globally, nationally, economically, in all the different areas, right? So this judgment card, I am focusing today on that, the red cross at the center of that, which to me feels like there will be an attempt to come in and prop up the economy. There will be an attempt to come in and, you know, fix that damage so that it doesn't spread wide. And who's behind that attempt? Let me just pull a card on that. Yeah, I actually get it's maybe a little bit of both sides. You know, the two different factions. And it certainly does augur for great global transformation, economic transformation. And again, like I've seen before, I'm getting a little bit later the spin-off, like March to April. So, however, we've got the best card in the deck here. The sun is underneath that tower card. So the tower is suggesting that we will see massive upheaval, you know, in the larger,
globally,
arena,
ASHALA, globally.
Yeah, globally.
Okay.
Yeah. However, it does feel like it is an opportunity for this shift. And because I have, meaning the shift being into a more sustainable long-term solution to this, and because I have the death card here in the future, it indicates that things will change, but the death card moves very slowly. You know, if we had the Wheel of Fortune there or the devil there or something, it would be something to really be worried about, like, oh my gosh, it's just going to be overnight, like the stock market crash in the 20s, right? It doesn't feel like that. This feels, again, like I've been seeing all the way along, this happens more of a longer term transition over 6 months, a year, year and a half kind of thing.
May I ask you here a question with this? Now,
yes.
That transition, is it towards better or worse?
I feel as though there's enough energies moving in to try to heal this or transform it. I keep getting these images, and I'm going to bring your attention to this one in the center, the Ace of Cups, that it is an opportunity for, it sort of like creates an opportunity for the energies to coalesce in a good way. We've got that in that cup, there's a gift, an offering. So a renewal, this is a card of renewal, a change of the system. So the old system breaks, but even as it's breaking, there's already a new system. And it, because these different energies are coming from all corners, we've got, I don't know if you can see it in this card, but there's a tiny, tiny little, looks like a wafer that's being dropped in the cup, like a blessing. And that also has that cross on it. And to me, that's the crossroads. That's coming from all the directions. The four corners of the globe are sort of coming in to work on a resolution to this.
So the new system, which was represented by this card, this symbolizes a good energy system.
It does.
This is, okay.
Now,
okay.
It doesn't mean that there's none of the controlling agenda still operating, but what it means is that there's enough players on board that are ready to transform it in a good way. So I don't see that we're entirely free of those other agendas. But like I've been saying for a while, it can take some time for the residue of that to clear. So, and what is really important to pay attention to here is, yes, this will be a transition. There's no getting away from that. That is the tower. There's no getting away from that. So things may look bleak. However, the sun is the best card in the whole deck, and it's qualifying that tower, saying, it'll turn out better. It'll be for the better in the long run. So for us not to get too anxious about if we lose some of the things that are attached to that old system, they will be replaced with better options. That's what I'm seeing.
Thank you, ASHALA. Thank you. So this is a very, very fresh question now, because it literally came to me before we connected. And I don't know, because I never ask this kind of question any tarot reader. And I wonder if you can even answer this specifically with the cards' help. However, I'm still gonna ask. So the time, as we know, doesn't exist as far as is the future, past, and present exist at the same time. It's a very hard concept to grasp by our brain, but that's how it is. It's not linear, right?
Yes, absolutely.
And now my question would be, because I don't really want to ask forward, I want to ask backward now. This is like a time travel question. I mean, not really backward because it's the same time, but let's say, what year in the past would be the most similar representation of the year 2022? Because I think the history repeats itself. So then we can look into the very year and see what were the main major events and, you know, think about it. Does it make sense what I'm asking? Like,
yeah. Okay. So
I know it's
like
strange.
Questions. I'm like, don't hold me accountable, please. But I am, so I just immediately, I do like to play these games with timelines, with time. So it's not terribly uncomfortable for me. And I just immediately tune in and got 1472. Then I pull a card on that.
Okay, I'm writing.
I pull a card on that and I'm like, it's like, no, that's not quite right. But then I was like, okay, 1430s to 1480s. So when you say 1 year, I feel like it's actually time was slower then. So we're actually looking at a whole 1430s to 1480s is the era that is kind of compressed into 2022.
Wow, 1430s. So, and could you do the reading, Ashala, now and tell us what were the main energies of that, or outcomes or energies of that era that will represent the closest this brand new current year?
Yeah. Very fascinating. I'm curious.
It's a very different question, I know.
So I heard the word automatic pilot, and what that is saying to me is that it is about establishing systems, and I'm wondering if they're more, not so much like really solid economic systems, but if they are more like alliances or kind of like long-term agendas that are then set onto automatic pilot. It's kind of this sense of, well, I mean, there was a lot of connecting places through travel. So we have this travel card, and I'm looking at this and going east meets west, a lot of interaction between Asia, Europe, and the Americas. So I feel like it's something to do with these arrangements or these alliances that were formed at that time. And they set this, it's almost like prior to that, things were very temporary, meaning that, you know, you might set up an alliance with a particular nation, between two nations, but it was like, you know, within 30 years or 50 years or 100 years, there would be another war and that alliance would shift. And there's something about what was created then, a lot of those things stayed relatively unchanged after that. Like there was something, it was a type of system, and it likely has to do with connecting different parts of the world, which were prior to that quite a bit more isolated and not working in tandem. So I know a little bit about the history of some of the nefarious dark players.
Oh, yeah.
And I don't remember the exact date, but I do know that some really big things happened in the middle of that 14th century. And that was about creating a long-term goal that was literally hundreds of years in the future. Like, you know, they set this design in motion with these alliances that were quite hidden. And, you know, this is part of what we're dealing with now. We're dealing with the ongoing effect of how tightly they wove that agenda. What we're seeing this year is that we could change the model of alliance, is that we set something in motion that could go on for literally decades and then centuries. And then, you know, like we're thinking long term, right? We're thinking long term. And we're creating alliances, but this time it's out in the open, and it's for the healing and the transformation. It's for the cause of restoring harmony. It's not just a few people creating this alliance to get wealthy and control the world, right? So it's a similar.
Oh my gosh, I got goosebumps when you were talking. Like, it just happens naturally. I receive an image, like when you were saying this, I'm like, oh my gosh, this is. So that was the era of finalizing the playbook. Okay, they play by to create
really formulating
the playbook. And then when you were saying, however, we are going to reverse, you know what I saw, ASHALA? I saw a mirror. Like, let's say you're standing at the front of the mirror, and we are turning this around.
Yes. And there's something about it now being, you know, so much more, well, it's transparent, it's out in the open. And we are involved in those decisions, we the common people, and we're aware of it. Yeah.
Wow.
Okay, so this is kind of sweet too. Because while that's happening, I mean, there's just so much different aspects of life going on. Then, you know, we also have this time of chivalry.
Oh, and I like that.
Yeah, and I don't know if you listened to my yeah, you did, to my yearly forecasts, but I see relationships and a new, well, even today I'm just getting this, it's like a new type of relationship that similarly is not so much about the personal. It's not just about, like, you know, well, I want these things in my personal life. It's about what these relationships are dedicated to: healing, to transformation, to restoration. And there is something, there was a flavor of that happening then. There was also a lot of really dark stuff going on, you know, kind of like today, right? So it feels as though chivalry might have gotten put asunder by the success of the tight weave of that agenda. And we'd like to revive it now in a beautiful way and make sure that it lasts well into the future, you know, not just for a decade, but that this is like a new way of looking at life. So love, relationships, partnerships, those kind of things. I mean, it sounds so trivial, but really, if we have powerful, beautiful relationships, so much can change on this planet. People will feel more fulfilled. They'll feel more, you know, connected emotionally. Life always looks better when we're in love.
Yes.
And I feel like we could use a huge dose of that at this time.
I mean, that entire system has been created to replace that connection with objects. And again, nothing against objects. I really like objects.
Now I got the chills.
But if you cannot share those objects with someone, or the experiences with someone, there is only to the certain point, because I do see a value of solitude for generating the energy and strength and clarity. Sometimes being in presence of other people distracts, But then again, and you said this, I just want to say again this, because I didn't comment under your last, under the video, although I wanted to, but I didn't comment that. You said when there are two minds that come together, and this is exactly, I remember when I read in Napoleon Hill, Think and Grow Rich, because he was channeling, and Ashala knows, because Ashala is brilliant with books and writing, she's a writer too. So this exactly what came to my mind. Like his wife, Napoleon Hill's wife, and him, they were like brainstorming. So there is like a certain electrical connection, almost like magnetic connection, when two minds come together.
Yes.
And they are aligned, and how much they can, like that's what Jesus said, even if one or two of you shows up, because that's all you need. It's this 1%. It's this 1%.
Right. That's right. Well,
So
well, I believe Jesus said, whenever two or more of you.
Or more come, yes, exactly.
Two or more. So here we all are being, we've been pulled apart to be individuals,
yes,
looking out for number one, looking out for number one, right? And it's like, and that's been purposefully done, crafted, powerfully, really masterfully crafted to separate us on that very deep level, because there's an awareness that the power of two and beyond is exponential, and that's unmanageable. So,
and that was in your reading, Ashala. That was in your reading for 2022. Yeah,
it was. And there was a lot done in that time period that I mentioned, between the 1430s and the 1480s, to break this sort of spell, this chivalric spell, which was a lot about the honor of love, the honor about choosing to love someone. It was like there was a great deal of awareness about what a sacred act it was. So the other thing that I'm getting around the relationship between that time period and how that's quite compressed into this upcoming year is that there was a sense then of being restricted or limited. So whatever was going on, restrictions, limitations were pervasive throughout a lot of Europe and the Middle East, and people were very, very anxious. So that is similar. And we'd love to see that shift. Yeah, it's like, okay, we've got the 2 9s. So if we can replace the anxiety with a real awareness. Well, like, this isn't our first rodeo, folks. You know, if we look back through history, we've done this before. So the 9 of Wands is this character. He's actually quite battle weary. You see he's got like a bandage across his forehead, and he's basically looking at what is surrounding him. It's the history of his life and his actions. So that's our collective history that's surrounding us. And he's almost fenced in there by that collective history. But he's got that one wand in his hand, the 9th wand, and he's deciding where he's going to take that energy to renew it. So he's taking all that he's done. So our collective history since the 1430s onwards, take all that information and make a really wise choice about how to integrate what we've learned from that and move that in a really intelligent, sustainable direction. So that 9 of Wands is, I call it synthesis. We're synthesizing what's happened, in this last close to 600 years. And we are preparing ourselves to move in a new direction. It's also the card that I call the resume card. It's kind of like when you actually spell it out to yourself, when you look back and go, yeah, I did this. Oh yeah, that year I did that. And then I did this, and I have this certification, and I've had this experience. When you lay it all out to yourself, it gives you the confidence to step through that gateway in a new way, to take all that experience and move in a new direction, as opposed to feeling victim to the anxiety of what appears to have us kind of fenced in, right? So this guy, he's saying, yeah, I'm fenced in, but there's still lots of ways out of this. And I'm going to take all that I've learned from what's happened and move in a really good direction. So I feel like that's relevant for us.
So I got another vision when you were talking about it, and I saw this card of this. Actually, I saw a soldier. I saw a battlefield, like two hills and middle-aged battlefield, and two different armies that were facing one another. Literally, when you were talking and explaining this, and that one with this bandage or whatever on his head, I saw like representation that those two armies, they were they supposed to fight one against another, but something very miraculous happened. They stood there and they decided not to do it. And they said, why are we doing this? We don't have to kill one another because the king on the horse on the top of the hill decided to have another war.
Yes.
And literally they turn this event around and they drop their, swords and whatever was the weapon in the time, and they just left the field because those kings, they were not able to fight without the human soldier.
Yes.
So I was thinking when you were reading this now, Ashala, because not only we are changing this timeline, we actually can change that timeline with our decisions now.
We can. And we've got another 9 here. And when there's 3 of a kind, that it is a blessing. It is means that Spirit is supporting us in getting this right this time. The 9 of Pentacles, which is the card of sovereignty, personal sovereignty. So this is what was traded in back from, probably prior to the 1400s, but they got really good at it at that point. They got really good at basically brainwashing the masses into seeing always this big, enormous threat, the big enemy. And if all of the kings and rulers of these different lands are going, oh, there's a big enemy out there, you've got to all show up and fight. And the other one is saying the same thing, they're amping it up, and it's like, again, like what we were saying in the last interview, that the bigger the lie, the better. They would say things about the other people that were just outrageous, like horrible things about them, which is probably what they were, these kings and these, elites and stuff, that was what they were practicing. But they would say, oh yeah, all these people over there were like this, and they're coming after us and we've got to like get them out of here. They're the worst evil enemy. And, people didn't stop to inquire because they just trusted, well, these like global elites have traveled around and they're just in their little shire. Yes. Not going anywhere. And they're going, oh, there's a big enemy coming. We trust our king, and we're going to go fight this big enemy. So they had this vision in their mind of what that enemy looked like. And those are the big lies that just kept getting recirculated. And, I've studied so much of European and Asian history, and you just watch it. It's like clockwork. It's like a formula. It's just like every 30
like
years.
A playbook. It's like a playbook. Exactly.
And it's just like every 30 years, here comes the same story. And the next generation buys it, and here it comes again, another version.
And then you have church participating, right?
Yeah. Which was like our modern television set.
Oh yeah. Yes.
Right.
Yes.
It was just like, here we go. This is the propaganda machine. Boom, 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 boom. And all of the different organized religions were kind of in their own way participating in that. It doesn't mean that the essence, the spiritual essence underneath those religions is not beautiful, but it means that the power that those spiritual energies generated was something that could easily be hijacked and turned into a propaganda machine, just like our television sets. It can be beautiful. It can tell us beautiful stories and connect us in our imaginations with people from other parts of the world, but it can also be an absolute weapon of manipulation and mass conditioning, which it's unfortunately has become, right?
It's just now when when we sit down and just think about it, they took Jesus as who represented message of kingdom within you, loving one another, connecting with one another, and became a threat. So they killed him for this, and then they took the very person, they created a religion around it, and then they went on the crusades to kill in the name of, which was completely not the message.
Yeah.
And when you think, it's like, how twisted this can be.
Well, that's all the reversals and the inversions, right? That's the whole practice of, and like I was saying last week when I read about that, member of the Nazi party that said that how they created that whole fascist regime was that you have to tell a very big lie.
Repeat it over and over.
And repeat it over and over again. Not a little lie, because people will figure that out. But if it's so big and it gets a lot of airtime, it actually has that effect of flipping our awareness upside down. And that is
because it gets your attention, Ashala. Because it grabs your attention.
Because it's so far out that you're like, well, where did this come from? Our psyche is scanning and going, this is, one of these things is not like the others, right? It's like, it's our psyche's going, this is really strange. I better give it attention, right? And then we give it all this attention, and guess what? Then they've got our attention.
Yeah, that's all they want. And then once they have our attention, we haven't even been realizing how they were manipulating with literally our frequency, with our consciousness. Yeah. It's truly, this is the fight for the consciousness. I mean, seriously, we know it is. Okay, so anything else to compare, or I can ask next question?
You can ask next question.
And the last question is, again, a little bit Hitchcock here, but because I didn't ask it last time, and I felt like today is good time because it's a few weeks after. And I actually would like to know, although I have my own opinion, which I don't want to share here now yet, I just want to hear from you. A few weeks ago, there was an interview that Candace Owens had with Mr. T, okay? During this interview, and I just want to narrow to this, during this interview, he said in a very, very highly way about the experience, okay? And about his participation in the experience. And after that, I realized, because I was watching some other people on YouTube from different groups that many people think I would watch, okay? So like totally different individuals. Yep. And they were saying, this is very strange. Why he said this? Because he is very well informed of the consequences of the experience. And so what really, and I don't want to jinx it now with my opinion, I just want to hear from you what you can see is really behind that approach.
Yeah, I'm getting something pretty clearly here, which is, I do feel like he considered this deeply, and you're going to love it, what he felt was that those of us that are aware and awake, this is not going to phase us. It's not going to change our minds. We're not going to go, like, it's actually a tribute to our intelligence. It's kind of like, you know what? It feels like it was a play to have more influence across the mass population. And so it was a kind of tipping point of, if he stays in our camp with regards to this particular issue, it's going to polarize him so much that he won't be able to have the influence he needs to have. And he trusted that those of us that are awake and aware would find our own way through that. that we were autonomous beings and we'd figure that out. We'd be like, well, if, you know, for example, you know, if you or I were in a position like that and we were facing having to, you know, separate ourselves further from having influence, we would not likely, we would look at the big picture, the overall long-term, you know, pros and cons of saying that and say, you know what, the people that this is going to, you know, the ones that are awake and aware, it's not going to change their opinion much. It, you know, and it's like, again, I get he's saying it's a tribute to our intelligence that we could figure that out and go, oh yeah, I guess I can see why you would do that if you're working towards getting more leverage in a certain way for a certain reason. So it's kind of like reading between the lines. It's like reading between the lines. He assumes that we can read between the lines.
Interesting. Some of it I felt, but I had other opinion about it as well. So
yeah,
it seems to me, Ashala, that he kind of played their game in a way.
Yeah, well, I mean, played along enough to continue to maneuver laterally across the whole playing field. You see, because there will be a time where it will be easier to disclose that, but at this juncture in the game, to really speak forcefully about that, yeah, I just keep hearing the wisdom of him saying, because we have the answer and is another 9. It's another 9, the 9, which is the Hermit.
Sovereignty.
Mm-hmm. It's sovereignty, and it's people trusting that people will find their way through this with their own inner light. Mm. So it's also a little bit like him saying, hey, you know, like, you don't have to listen to everything I say, like, listen to yourself. Because we don't understand why he would be making a decision like that. But if that's enough to rock our foundation and shake our belief in what we know to be true, well, it's like we have to come to terms with that in ourselves, right? And also, if again, like I feel like there's an aspect of having some compassion and also learning to tune in within and really pay attention to what you're being shown. So, you know, maybe you and I would make the same choice he made. Maybe we wouldn't. Maybe we wouldn't. But I'm sure he had good reasons. Was it the right choice? I'm not sure.
It was very interesting interview and experience for me, because I was wondering, I knew there is something behind it, but at the same time, I realized that he's going to lose some trust from some people with saying that.
Right.
Because it's very heavy subject and there's a lot of responsibility behind it, you know?
It is.
So that's actually all for today, Ashala. Thank you so much for joining me today. And I am so grateful for everyone who's watching us, and we thank you both for such nice comments and being so supportive and loving and open-minded.
Absolutely. And I want to thank you all very much, those of you that donated. I am really happy to say that this is going to that wonderful publication here in Canada that's speaking the truth in such a beautiful way. So thank you.
Thank you, Ashala, for doing this, because this just shows your heart too, that this is going from you to another cause. So yeah, it's beautiful. Yeah. Thank you so much for joining me, and until next time, everyone.